Chapter 8. The New World Order and the One World Government. In 1990, George H.W. Bush made a speech in front of a joint session of Congress in which he used the phrase, "A New World Order." Radical leftist billionaire George Soros, a man who has been kicked out of 6 countries including his native Hungary and has been declared a felon in France, has also said, "The main obstacle to a stable and just world order is the United States." Is the phrase of a world order another name for the one world government implied in Bible prophecy? We have to wonder who he meant when he said,
"We," and what kind of a new world is being sought by members of that we group.
We also see a man who was a small blip on the political radar for 5 decades. But he's more recently begun to make bigger waves. His name is Klaus Schwab. He is CEO of the World Economic Forum, established some 50 years ago, which calls for a one-world government. Oddly enough, his annual meetings in Davos, Switzerland boast of the support of thousands of companies from Goldman Sachs bankers to United Nations bureaucrats. Among those who attend WEF meetings are people like Bill Gates, Britain's King Charles, John Kerry, and, not surprisingly, George Soros, who is credited with saying,
"The sovereignty of states must be subordinated to international law and international institutions."
Whether the New World Order and the One World Government are the same is not clear at this time. But the WEF seems to advocate such an arrangement. Perhaps a case can be made that a New World Order and a One World Government can be conflated when we consider how the radical left tends to wordsmith our language to deceive and hide true meanings. Read more about Mr. Schwab below because his story introduces another issue that's a bit unnerving. The one world government paradigm would require the abolishing of nation-states, one of Karl Marx's dreams. Making the connection yet. If it happens as a small collection of elites happens, everybody on the planet will have to submit to the rule of the few globalist elitists who are right now working diligently to realize that goal. A goal that would not be passable with a strong United States in the way. Is this the precursor of the government that will produce the Antichrist? Jan Markle of Olive Tree Ministries has her very efficient ear to the ground on these issues and often makes interesting reports on her website concerning these subjects. According to the Bible, the one world government will eventually happen and will signal to those who have a biblical worldview and an eye on the sky that the end of the age has come. Many of the predictions made by Jesus Christ concerning the end times have been happening over the years, especially where he talked about wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes. But that's a bit too indistinct to put a stopwatch on it. So we in modern times must read the tea leaves and decide for ourselves where we are on God's timeline. A special group of people called eschatologists make it a practice of studying the end times prophecies and doing some calculations to discern where we are in terms of the prophecy of Daniel, the Old Testament prophet. James Valborg, a German-born banker, member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and member of the brain trust of Democrat President Franklin D. Roosevelt, testified before the U.S. Senate's Foreign Relations Committee on February 17, 1950. "We shall have world government whether or not you like it, by conquest or consent." A bold prediction at best, and scary, too. But he was right. Not so much because Valborg said so, but because the Bible suggested as more than a cog in the wheel of the end times. Control of the world could be a daunting task if sought through armed force, or as Mr. Valborg suggested, conquest against 7 to 8 billion people. The military logistics alone would boggle the mind. But it might be achieved by surreptitiously snaking away in and quietly, slowly taking over the halls of power in legislatures, congresses, and parliaments. A small, unnoticeable piece at a time is how Vladimir Putin became dictator of Russia. In other words, political leadership from city county and state levels right up to and including federal government infiltrations that could bring the downfall of nation-states. Not unlike what could be happening to America under the Biden administration's reckless spending, tyrannical mandates, constitution bashing, disregard for the rule of law, distorting education and brainwashing children, the support for a group of people whose very lifestyle imports sin, and more.